Other platforms impacted include Threads and Facebook Messenger. Today's the biggest day of the 2024 election nominating cycle. Michael Kastner has more.
Super Tuesday results will be announced in 16 states and American Samoa. It's a big day for former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who so far has only won one Republican contest in Washington, D.C. Haley held a rally last night in Fort Worth, Texas, saying the two frontrunners are out of touch.
You can't be like Joe Biden where you put your head in the sand, and you can't be like Donald Trump where you just walk away from everybody and think you're going to be okay.
In Hillsborough, North Carolina, this Republican voter told reporter Shaquille Brewster she's not a fan of either.
What made you switch from Trump to Nikki Haley?
The man is a lunatic, and I think he's terrible for the country.
Let me ask, if Donald Trump is the nominee in November, do you support Joe Biden over Donald Trump?
No.
The Supreme Court is temporarily blocking a Texas immigration law at the request of the Biden administration. It would allow police to arrest migrants who have illegally crossed the southern border and impose criminal penalties. Justice Samuel Alito issued an order that froze a lower court decision that would have let the law go into effect on Sunday. The ruling's now blocked until March 13th, which gives the High Court more time to figure out the next steps. At least 5 people are dead following a single-engine plane crash last night in Nashville. Authorities report the pilot radioed for clearance for an emergency landing at John C. Toon Airport shortly after 7:30 local time, but then informed the tower they were not going to make it. The aircraft ended up going down along an interstate highway. California is sending members of its National Guard to Texas to help in wildfire efforts. The airborne teams are part of an effort to fight the massive wildfires in the Panhandle. The wildfires become the largest in Texas history. You're listening to the latest on NBC News Radio.
It's time to shop in the cool, relaxed comfort of the Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands, conveniently located on the I-10 freeway between the Alabama and Tennessee exits. Bring the kids too and watch them play in the only indoor fun center, High Five Indoor Playground, where parents are welcomed on the playground. Birthday celebrations are encouraged, so make plans for some great fun at the mall. More reasons why the Tri-City Center is called the Mall with a Heart.
Hi, this is Graham Smith, and I'm running for County Supervisor in District 3. I know you're getting inundated with messages about the election, so I'll keep this short. If you want a supervisor who won't waste your tax dollars, who will be a watchdog over the $10 billion county budget, who understands the danger of relying solely on warehouses to keep our economy going, and who isn't taking donations from corporations or sitting politicians, vote for me. Graham Smith for Supervisor in District 3. I've worked for 20 years in finance and business. I know how to grow our economy, create jobs, and make sure your tax dollars aren't being wasted. I'm not a politician. I'm just a resident of San Bernardino who's tired of unqualified leaders who make promises they can't keep. And I care about people, affordable housing, and honest and open government. We need to address our challenges in a realistic manner. A county supervisor needs to pay attention. So if you're ready for a supervisor who prefers skills over sound bites, someone who wants to serve the people instead of themselves, if you think we need to try something new, vote Smith for Supervisor. You can go to smithforsb.com. SMITHFORSB.com. The election is March 5th. Mail in your ballot today. Paid for by Smith for Supervisor. I'm Graham Smith, and I approve this message.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month for news, weather, and emergency information. A new bill in Congress would make sure AM radio remains in cars, because when cell and internet services are down, this free service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Mountain Auto Parts in Crestline reminds everyone that the blood you donate gives someone another chance at life. Someday, that someone might be a friend, a loved one, or even you. So please give blood, give the gift of life. That's Mountain Auto Parts at 23754 Lake Drive in Crestline, where they care about your total satisfaction with their selections, service, quality, and pride. You're not just a number there, you're a friend. Mountain Auto Parts on the air because they care.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic point.
When I go, I'm gone. Are you lonely? No.
Nah, I knew that was going to be
But
the
I
answer.
surround myself with people. I mean, I'm always the one cooking for things. But I'm always the one that decorates first and come to my house. All the orphans that have no place.
I'm going to have no place to go, so
Okay,
I can come
okay,
over.
come on over.
And life is so amazing if we can see it.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome, you're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Facts with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News, CNBC News, NBC Sports Radio Station, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, TV Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. So there's no gossip on this show, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kanye talk at all, formerly or now. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have topics and guests to that end, and this is consecutive week number 618, podcast show number 1118. I think I was doing this before they called them podcasts, and I'm so delighted that the TV channel that I have now up on YouTube has all of those shows that you can go back and revisit. Interviews with Marianne Williamson, Neil Donald Walsh, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, global thought leaders, as well as humanitarians like Rico Berry, and then, of course, TV and film. Marion Ross, one of my favorites. You saw her in the extended promo, and I'm just so grateful that those who said that this show would not last more than a year because I was not all about the bad news were wrong. And now I have topics and guests to help you learn about new things, and today is absolutely no exception. My Tuesday talent guest today is she is Andy Liu. She's an Australian leading wellness expert presenter living in Los Angeles and touring her Tenets Health title. She's a best-selling author, certified food and lifestyle wellness coach, and hosts her own podcast, Well to Do. Treasured Chest, Exposing Explants and Empowering You is her current book title, creating a movement of women coming home back to their organic states. Please welcome to my studio, Andy Liu.
It was like I was just enjoying your package and all of the beautiful people that you have interviewed over the years. So congratulations. It was enjoyable, and I bet nobody ever gets sick of watching that package. It's very uplifting. This is indeed the 10th health title, Treasured Chest.
That's wonderful. 10 titles. That is so awesome. And congratulations to you too as well. Yeah, in doing a little research and putting your promo together, you do a lot of the same things that I do, which is kind of funny that we bump into each other, not in Australia where you're from, where I had just returned from, right? When I met you, I was a week.
And you were handing out koalas.
Yes, that's right. Back in the day, and there you were. How did you find Agape?
Well, that's how we met, guys. We met at Agape with Dr. Michael Beckwith, who was giving a beautiful service on a Sunday, as he always does. And we were in this divine Saban theatre. And there was Dr. Marissa handing out little koalas, and they're quite a common tourist thing. And I was like, oh, there's an Australian lover here. And we got talking, and then we both realized, as you said, that we do similar things. So uplifting people. It's through my books and my work as a certified food, lifestyle, and wellness coach. And I've been teaching health and wellness for 31 years now. So I'll let you guess my age. I look great for 72, don't I?
You're not 72.
No, we're not. But I am going to be 51. I'll be 51 in July, which I'm excited about. And, as I enter into my 50s, I think it's really important for people to understand, like, as I've written all these books, Dr. Marissa, Where Do They Go is about ghosting, so dealing with disappearance. Eat Fat, Be Lean is what created me into a best-selling author. We created a fat food movement. Wellness Loading is a digital detox, beautiful recipes in there. Probably my bestseller, which is also an Audible book, is this book, Connected, A Paradigm Shift in How We View Health. 320 pages of research. And my most recent title, as you said, Bringing Women Back Home to Their Organic States. So aging naturally, and a part of that is removing your breast implants. So as you can see, I've got some scars going on here, and I had what's called an explant surgery, where, let's cut to the chase. I almost died a year ago today, but we can address the elephant in the room. As a wellness expert, why on earth would I put something so toxic in my body? And it was for trauma reasons, really. So I felt like I had a wall up, a shield protecting my chest, making me feel less like a prepubescent girl, which was when the trauma happened, and then more like sort of this empowered woman. But of course, it was a facade, and it was very traumatic. And so when I finally had the suggestion and diagnosis from my doctor a few years ago saying you've got breast implant illness and mast cell activation syndrome as a result, she was like, we need to address this. And I had to do the deep work. So I went to work and addressed all of that trauma to get ready to shed and come back home to who I've always wanted to be, which is my organic state as an empowered 50-something-year-old woman now. And I'm finally free to be me. And what I realized after appearing on the Today Show with my story is that I wasn't alone. There are millions of women across the world who do have and suffering from breast implant illness. However, those symptoms ranging from rapid hair loss, tinnitus, digestive issues, dry eyes, inability to sweat, loss of libido, all of these crazy anxiety and depression, so many different symptoms, they're all being swept under the rug. So they're coming forward and they're telling me, help me, help me. I also want to remove my breast implants. But what's so sad, Dr. Marissa, is that it's a $14,000 and up surgery. So most women are silently suffering and they can't even afford to remove. So they're dying to be well.
That's a lot of information. I'm just like trying to unpack it a little bit at a time. Yeah. And we want to come back to that, but I do start every show with breakfast with my guest, and we do taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. So I want to go kind of rewind there, and then we'll come back to each of the topics. But in order to do that, and I don't warn my guests, so the bite of the sandwich is the top of the bun is 8 specific things that we're grateful for. So what are you grateful for? And if you're in the chat right now, those of you who are driving and listening to the AM FM on the way to work, please do not chat. But I do see eyeballs rolling in. And if you have something that you're grateful for, I want you to exercise your ability to start the day looking at the things that are going well before we launch into the things that are not. So I'll start. I am grateful that we continue to have a nice balance of rain that we need in California, and then a lot of sun is coming back because I'm solar powered. And I just love the look of the sun. What are you grateful for?
Oh, 100%. The sunlight is streaming into my kitchen and my home today, and I was just looking at it and going, I am so grateful for light. It's just a wonderful thing.
It is. It is. I am grateful for the ability to travel again. It's almost like it happened a lifetime ago where we were restricted and couldn't move and couldn't travel and couldn't do things. And the good thing is a lot of us have sort of, left that behind, and we're not still suffering from the losses and all of that. I talked about that yesterday. If you missed my Mental Health Matters Monday show, we talked about how to heal from a little bit of traumatic events like the pandemic. But it looks like a lot of us have done the art of neglect, and we don't think about it, therefore it doesn't negatively impact. But I want you to also take the positive away, which is we can travel now, and I will never take that for granted again.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Every time those planes lift off the ground, it's still a miracle.
Yes.
Oh,
You know,
gosh.
I was on the last plane out of China before they started taking temperatures.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
November 2019. So,
Wow.
what else are you grateful for?
Well, I'm grateful for the ability to connect with people that I normally wouldn't get a chance to. So, on this show, Dr. Marissa, it's a wonderful thing to have gratitude for because even though I'm not very good at technology, I managed to get in here today and now I'm talking to you and things are running smoothly. So, I'm very grateful for that.
Great, great. Now we're going to go to the bottom of the button, and that is gratitude turned within. So I call that appreciation. I'm also a student of the law of attraction in Abraham Hicks, and so her term of appreciation describes what I want you to do some weightlifting around. Because we grow up, most of us, it sounds like you're with me, one of the 7 out of 10 of us who've had some kind of trauma in our growing up. We don't get the message to like ourselves. And as a result, we go around with antenna saying, who likes me, literally now with social media, who likes me? Instead, I want you to know you are one of a kind, wonderful. And so we do this part of the bottom, which is, what do you like about yourself? And I want you to do this before you go to bed so that the last thing on your mind is not what is wrong with me or what hasn't gotten done or who done me wrong. Instead, we're looking at what do I like about myself? So I'll start. I appreciate my ability to come from love. That is my newest thing. 88% of the time, really trying to see everyone the way that my friendly universe, or what I call my God, my UPS man, my universal power source, the way he sees everyone, which is through love. And certainly my big brother, Michael Bernard Beckwith, is such a good example of this. Sometimes I say, I can't love them, but my big brother can, so love through him and love through me. But that's what I appreciate about myself. Andy.
Wow, beautiful. Well, everything is love. So that is such a lovely thing. Yeah, I think also that practice of going to bed at night, Dr. Marissa, and saying that is so beautiful. I've parented that way with my child ever since he was born, going through all the things that, you know, we enjoyed about the day or that I love about him, and sort of going through that talk so it becomes the inner self talk to themselves and helping them to fall asleep, you know, very peacefully that way. So why not practice it for ourselves if we're doing it to our children, right? So what I love about myself is my ability to understand how my body works to heal and my commitment to learning more about that. And so, you know, this gives me the abundant health and wellness that I can then do more, be more, serve more. So I'm very grateful about my thirst for knowledge in health and wellness so that I can, you know, help myself and then help others.
Fantastic. I appreciate my ability to laugh. I love it's my favorite sound in the planet. So easier, faster, quicker, more, definitely on the laughter scale. So I appreciate that about myself. Last one.
This is the last one. How cool. I appreciate this is really weird, but my skin. I just appreciate my skin. Everyone always tells me when they hold me that I have beautiful skin, and yeah, I guess I just feel really grateful for that because I know it's a weird thing, but I feel like it gives people joy when they hold me or touch my skin. And I can actually remember doing that to my grandmother, my late grandmother, Margot, bless her. But I used to love touching the soft flappy part at the back of her arms. And it was so soft, and we just used to go, can I have another turn? It was beautiful.
That's beautiful. All right, and that's it for breakfast with Dr. Marissa and my very special Tuesday talent guest, Andy Liu, right? And I promise you that if you start your day with this taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich for 28 consecutive days, you will sandwich your day in the most positive way. All right, and we are back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News Radio, AM 1050, FM 106.5, streaming everywhere, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and my YouTube TV channel, where if you free subscribe, you will get an alert every weekday morning to start your day with more hope and happiness. And today's guest is Annie Lou. She is originally from Australia. She does live in LA now, and she's here to talk to us about a plethora of topics, actually. I do want to start with the one that you have made it one of the things that is, when we go through things that are not pleasant, one of the greatest things is we are able to help others who are going through that after us. And I do believe that's one of the reasons why we go through what we go through. And she's definitely done that. And that is with breast implants. And you said, putting the elephant on the room, my Canadian version of that is, let's talk about the moose on the table. And it is definitely, it is something that I heard in one of your interviews that face it, the common reaction, which I have to admit, I'm normal. And when, you're complaining about things that happen to you with a breast implant, if you haven't had a breast implant and you thought about it and chose not to, you say, well, you kind of did it to yourself. And those are the consequences of getting a breast implant, and you should have known, and you should have, researched that and all of that, which is really not fair because, we all do things kind of without reading the fine print and scrolling quickly to say accept on the bottom and then realizing later what you just did. So, but I want to go back because that is trauma, and I'm sorry that happened to you. And that was a year ago, so not that long ago. So how old were you when you got the implants? You said you described very well kind of the motivation to do so. You wanted it to enhance the way you looked, as well as sort of heal some of those earlier wounds around whatever you were feeling. But at what age and how long did you have the implants? Because I think that for anyone, and I'm sure, do you know the statistic about how many women in America or in the world get breast implants?
I heard recently it was something like 400,000 a year, and then there's 40,000 a year that are actively removing them at the same time. But for the first time ever in the cosmetic profession, if you like, breast augmentation is what it's called, is no longer the number one cosmetic surgery, and explants really are on the rise. So that's why the subtitle of Treasured Chest is exposing explants and empowering you. I think it's important to remember that before we go into my personal story, that the profession does need to be exposed, because there is a lot of corruption. A lot of women are talking about feeling medically gaslit, being talked into something that they even didn't want to have when they went to see the surgeon originally, perhaps for just a lift or some sort of procedure. And then they get, slammed with this thing that has an FDA black box warning, but not really understanding the severe ramifications of that. So to answer your question, Dr. Marissa,
I did do a little bit of research. I like to do this during the show, real time. 8.08 per 1,000 people, women, in the U.S. reported having some type of breast implant. Approximately 60. I thought that number is low. Of the procedures have been done for cosmetic reasons. Most of the women were white, 94.6, and rates were highest in the South or West. And this is from a credible source, which I'm always harking on, National Institute of Health. So that's an interesting number, yeah. And
there
I'm
are also so many women who have had mastectomies that have read my book, Treasured Chest, and decided not to reconstruct because they understand the seriousness. And so they're actually embracing their flat which is so beautiful. And I'm so proud of these ladies. And telling me and showing me and actually parading their flat on social media and really owning their bodies exactly the way they are. It's so interesting that we would go and happily spend, $5 or whatever it is for a pink ribbon on National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but then we won't realize that money is actually funding the manufacturers for something that's causing breast cancer. So there are new types of cancers that are coming out as a result of having implants because they're found in the surrounding scar tissue. So the body starts to wall off that implant and create this scar tissue or a capsule around the entire implant. And when women are removing them in this procedure called explant, which is actually, it needs to be en bloc surgery or complete capsulectomy where that surrounding scar tissue comes out with the bag. Then like an eggshell, they peel it away and then they open it up and inspect what's in the bag, because most of the time the silicone is not inert, as the FDA have announced, and it keeps it intact. And then that scar tissue then gets sent off to labs to be inspected for the two new types of cancers called squamous cell carcinoma and anaplastic large cell lymphoma. So it can be quite horrific for some. There are class actions brewing against manufacturers and also surgeons themselves. But it is really just a new type of movement, if you like, where women are finally starting to join the dots and realizing that they're not going crazy and that this really is, breast implant illness really is a serious illness. And that narrative, I just wanted to address, that international narrative of, well, you did this to yourself. I'm looking really holistically at that in this book, like, how did we get here? Who's really control? And that's why the cover is very like, taking agency in that powered sort of empowered stance, because we are always in control, but we need to be properly informed. And I guess that's where the women who are suffering are really mad and sad and dying because they feel like they weren't told or they're not heard. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Breast implant illness isn't an official diagnosis. And I really want to unpack that more and more. At the moment, we're collecting funding for a documentary, and we want to start producing this documentary where we investigate and unpack why it's not a proper diagnosis. And I was speaking to some attorneys who have had success in these class actions, and they're saying it just makes it so much more difficult to have a successful suit against a manufacturer or a surgeon when there's no official diagnosis. And so again, silently sort of sweeping these women's stories under the rug, yet we're one step closer with new data from the professor who did my surgery, who then after my surgery went and got this new data to support that implants are the inflammatory driver, and indeed they are creating a cytokine storm. So I'm not sure if you want me to answer the part about when I had my implants, how long I had it, but I think it's important for people to know that the implant illness can come on straight away or years later. Everyone's different. It's all about when that body decides to reject the implants. Now, the thing is, when we say when the body starts to reject, not if the body, because it really is a ticking time bomb. And the body is so clever at adapting. Our bodies, as you know, our spiritual bodies can just continue to adapt against any kind of toxic stressors. And then there's limitations of matter, and then one day it gives. And so, you only have to look at the innate intelligence of the body and the way that capsule is being created, that scar tissue around the implant, to go that the body innately and intuitively immediately wants to protect it from the rest of the system. And that's why it creates that surrounding scar tissue, right? But I had mine when I was about 41 years old. I was a newly divorced woman. I'd just finished breastfeeding my child for 2 years and 10 days. That's a whole nother story in itself, full-term breastfeeding, and how the WHO believe that it should be 2 years and beyond. I had surrounded myself with wonderful lactation consultants. But having said that, it wasn't like my body had completely changed shape, because every woman's body does after breastfeeding in some way. However, I kind of think, well, what's wrong with that? It's natural and it's normal and it's age appropriate, and this is our divine body. So it wasn't for really aesthetic reasons so much. It was more about, in an intimate space, how I felt when I was perpetrated as an 8-year-old. And so, this was one of the reasons for the demise or breakdown of my marriage. Only one, I might say. But, it was up to me to then address that wound and that intimacy trauma. And so that was one of the things I chose to do at the time. It felt right. Although also at the time, those black box warnings were really sort of just downplayed. And that's really important. That fine print that you talk about, Dr. Marissa, really needs to be explored a whole lot more. In Australia, we don't have a TGA black box warning the way America has their FDA black box warning. So that's another thing to address right then and there. And then pretty much after surgery, I felt something on the left side. It felt like a fold. And exactly what I was describing, women's intuition. There's a reason why we have that phrase. That's what had happened. And it was like 8 years later that I started really saying, oh my gosh, that left side's getting inflamed. That left side's feeling swollen. That left side's bigger. Oh wow, 9 years later, I can't lift my arm up in the air anymore. That's when I was like, there's something going on here. So I doctor hopped. I went and saw 6 different surgeons, and I also got an MRI. And they all said I was fine. So nobody detected a rupture in that left part where the fold was, which was where the weak point was. And so for 2 years, I was slowly dying and suffering. And everybody said, no, you're fine. So I wasn't triaged, which meant that I wasn't put into 911 emergency. Let's get these out of her. She's got a rupture, because the MRI said there was no hole. They were looking for a traditional hole. They didn't put 2 and 2 together and go, well, of course that fold's going to become a weak point. Just like when you get a piece of paper and then you fold it, lick it, and it becomes a weak point. So, that was going on for quite a while. And, doom and gloom, it was bad. I wanted to die. I actually wanted to die because nobody believed me, and I was dying. My natural detoxification pathways were shutting down. I wasn't able to sweat. My liver, gallbladder, digestive system all weren't working the way they should or could, because I was just overwhelmed with toxicity. And when I got woken up from the operating table, there's a photo of me in this book, and I'm holding up the bags. The left bag was considerably smaller, and I kept saying, like, where the bleep is all of that silicone? It's in my body. Wow. So it's been a detoxification process journey. Like, it's been 1 year since I've explanted, but a lot of women get very sick from it as a result, and still detoxing many years later.
Wow. Yeah, I was just about to ask you what was leaking out, and then you just answered my question, which is the silicone. And
there are 40 toxic chemicals, including formaldehyde and things you wouldn't even want to put near yourself without gloves and masks and things like that. Yet they're inside our body in this apparent protective shell, but that shell also has millions of microparticles that are very toxic to the system, which is why the walling off. Whether it's silicone or saline, there is still an inflammatory driver if there's saline. The saline actually, a lot of people, when they get their saline bags out, they look black or green, and mold has developed in them, basically. And just like if you had, a bottle of water in your car sitting in the hot sun for many years, you can imagine what that water would look like in that plastic bottle.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny. I mean, just the topic of breast implants just makes me laugh at my own experience, because I've had several people, brave enough to ask me if I've had them, because for an Asian woman, I am like a little unnaturally larger than, the traditional. And so that's usually my experience. And yes, I admitted before that it's like, well, this is an elective thing, and why didn't you read, and why didn't you do that? But the reality is, if you think about anything that goes into our bodies, we don't know at the time. Even if there wasn't, what concerns me is when people know and they hide it. That's a little different than, you just don't know when, people, the ceilings of asbestos, like, they didn't know when they didn't purposely try to, but then once it's known, what do you do about that? that
Well,
to
everybody thinks it won't happen to me until it does.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
the doctors are very well versed in it's safe and it's not.
Well, they too have a vested interest in saying it's safe because they're making
Yes.
money. All these people that are making money,
Well,
of
it's
course, are going to
interesting.
say, yeah,
But it's interesting that you
normal.
say that. The first time ever I've realized in doctor history that this is the first doctor profession where you go for aesthetics first and health second. Most doctors we go to for health first. And so, every time I kept going back to my doctor reporting, this thing on this issue on the left side, he said things, but we've got a great aesthetic result. And that's the conversation I had with my diagnosing medical doctor who said you've got the breast implant illness because they are focused on the aesthetic result. And that's all they care about. So until it does look botched or whatever, then apparently you are fine and you are crazy when you report the anxiety, the depression, the hair loss, the tinnitus, the this, the that. So,
Right.
and there's a laundry list of symptoms, but nobody's looking at it because, of course, if they did, then they'd question why they're practicing this profession in the first place, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Well,
the
I mean,
corruption is
what's
deep.
happening with Ozempic and all of that. It's like
And
it's
the movie Painkiller.
it's a similar line of the
It is.
foundation of the brokenness of the way we see ourselves that is so focused on the outside and so little focused on the inside. I mean, that's the silver lining in this is it's forcing us all, as it did for you. Why did I do that? What is it in me that I have to heal
Yeah.
about the way that I see myself? And that
But
is
look at you, even like sort of if and you innocently didn't mean it, but it kind conversations like I'm a larger Asian woman and blah blah blah. That sort of thing perpetuates the narrative because we're so focused on size, we're so focused on what other people think when it comes to size and their narratives around us, and so it is a huge task getting a woman to really embrace her organic state just the way she is. That's why I say my hat goes off to all of those mastectomy survivors who aren't implanting and walking around embracing their flat topless. That's just like, whoa to me, and walking around parading it like a man would take off his shirt and walk around in the hot sun. That's the way these mastectomy survivors are parading themselves.
Yeah, because on your picture on your cover, it doesn't look like you needed implants.
And see, there's an interesting conversation too. Like we just are who we are. And, some people could say, you didn't need it. Why did you do it? Or you didn't need it and it's supposed to be a compliment. I just think we just are who we are, and our divine body is our divine body, the way God designed us and our experiences and how that body changes. The most important thing is that my body, the way it looks now, isn't going to look the same next year or 10 years' time. So we have to continue to embrace that positive aging, just the same way with the Japanese kintsugi notion of, when we do have cracks and flaws, that we put it back together with the gold. That's what kintsugi is about, to highlight those flaws. Look, there's so many different things that we can do when it comes to like posture rehabilitation, pectoral rehabilitation that can give an illusion of a better chest. And so, posture to me is everything.
But that focus is again on the looks, right?
But to me, posture is everything because of what's housed inside the spine is the nervous system. And this is going to get really spiritual because our nervous system is our master controller. So it sends signals to every cell, tissue, and organ in our body. And it is the way we perceive the world, adapt to stress, and coordinate all bodily functions. So our posture really is what's beautiful about us because it's what makes us healthy. Now, this is the spiritual part. And I talk about this in my book, Connected, A Paradigm Shift in How We View Health. It's got a whole chapter in here about chiropractic. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because doctors of chiropractic are removing the nervous system interference, which is more than just bones out of alignment, because what's inside the spinal bones is the spinal cord, and that's attached to the brain. Now, this is our innate intelligence, if you like, but our innate intelligence is running all by itself. So when we get a paper cut, for example, that innate intelligence sends a signal to there to heal the cells immediately and start to bond the tear or the cut. We don't have to say, now you do it, now let's massage it, now let's give it positive affirmation. It's doing it all on its own. But how is it doing it? Through communication of universal intelligence. So when our universal intelligence, which is God or grand organized design or the universe, whatever you want to call it, is sending signals through our innate intelligence, there is this communication that is going on when we are connected to source, when we are connected to God. And this is what makes us beautiful, because we are connected to source and we hold ourselves in that posture, in that alignment that allows us to connect fully to source. You don't see depressed people positive and happy people walking around like this. You see depressed people walking around like this because they're literally not connected to source. There's distorted signals going from brain to body. So when we change our physiology, we change our chemistry and then in turn our emotional status. So to go back to what beauty is health. And that stems from our posture, Dr. Marissa. And so that changes the illusion of what we carry on our chest because of what's behind it, and that is our heart.
Mm-hmm. That makes more sense now that you explained it that way. And I absolutely have personally shifted from what's important in weight loss or weight release and how I look from the aesthetic side to the health side. And the health side, you have introduced the marriage between the spiritual health and the physical health, which our teachers are global thought leaders that we learn from. Deepak Chopra talks about the emotions and 3 emotions that, help our physical health and our mental health. Love, joy, and creativity. That's the emphasis that you're making, which is an important one, that we're not doing, we're not doing the alignment for the purpose of pushing our chest out. We're doing the alignment so that we are centered and connected to who we really are.
Balanced.
Balanced
beings.
Yeah.
So who we really are is beautiful. And then that's when our true beauty, comes out and everything. And I just wanted to give that more airtime than anything else, because we can talk about aesthetics and size and you didn't need this and that. None of us needed it. None of us. And that's the narrative that I want to be able to change. Let's have conversations around the other stuff, because nobody's talking about that, and that's the truth. And everybody's talking about what everybody else wants us to talk about. The comparisonitis, the size, you didn't need. And so, and that's why, we create what we give weight to, that conversation. So let's not give that any more weight. Let's not give it any more airtime. And I did think long and hard about exposing sort of my chest on the cover like that, and that people would make judgments. And I kind of went to sleep when I pressed the print button that night, and I was like, oh, what have I done? Now everyone's going to look at it, talk about it. But it was one of those visions that I had. I came out of the shower one day and I looked at my scars, and those reminded me of my war wounds. And I was like, what have I done? And I just looked at myself and did some mirror work and held my heart. Mm-hmm. And when I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, that's the cover. Just this raw state of who I am, just getting out of the shower and just loving my inner child like mm-hmm. that. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of couldn't, it was too late. Well, I'd already pressed print. But,
and I'm not criticizing that at all.
No, I know.
And it
inspires these conversations,
doesn't it? But you have to have that conversation in order to get to the next conversation. You can't ignore that aspect of it.
That's
you have
right.
to put that moose on the table. Otherwise, I had a former KKK leader on, and his point around no one's going to be able to hear you when they're 12 miles into the forest. You have to be able to open enough to let them come to the edge of the forest before you can begin to influence.
Wow.
So it's in that way, to react to the normal conversation, I think that the path there is a little uncomfortable, but it is necessary so that, you do ask that fundamental question, which
that's right.
is, which is, there's nothing wrong with me. Why would I want to do something that I don't need to do?
Well, that's what I talk about in the book. And, it's a really interesting chapter. And why does anyone do anything they do? And that's addressing, the root cause. And that root cause is so important to address when it comes to healing holistically. And so, it's a complex answer.
Yeah, for sure. And if you've just tuned in and you're wondering what's going on in my studio today, this is Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show, and it is #Tuesday Talent today with wellness and health expert certified from Australia, but she lives here now. Her name is Andy Liu, and she's talking about something that we don't normally talk about. I mean, honestly, this is the very first conversation I've ever had about breast explants. And it's good to know that, I didn't know that there are cancers associated with it. If you're listening, anyone who is thinking about doing that, please have them listen to the show. Someone who's already had it done, had a horrible experience, had the explants, and learned so much that she is now becoming an authority and an encourager on not having to do this, and really looking at how we can feel within. And I think when you said balance, I think that is super, super, super important. And I'm known for it's all about balance, peace in, peace out, because the balance between I love myself exactly as I am, and I'm absolutely wonderful and beautiful, and I put on 40 pounds from lazy focusing and putting things in my body that aren't good for me, and smoking and drinking and all of those habits that I know don't make me feel good and take away my naturally high state as who I am. I have to not necessarily embrace all of myself that have these things that I know are not good for me. So let me just balance that out. I think it's wonderful and important to love ourselves the way we are, and at the same time, ask ourselves from a balance-centered place, not the wounded place or the critical place. As I talk in my book about, the balance center, who you are, that loves yourself and knows that you are doing the best that you can 88% of the time, that you still then do things that are good for you. So I just want to make sure we're not, saying, throw the baby out with the bathwater. No matter what you're doing, it's great.
Let's talk a bit more about, weight and food and all of that, because that is one of my other loves with this book that made me a bestseller called Eat Fat, Be Lean and Wellness Loading. And it's interesting because a healthy body does look different on every person. You can be really lean and fit, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're well. I mean, are you fertile, etc.? And so there are a lot of things that make us, though, crave the sugar and crave the wheats. And the first two things that we need to look at is, do you have a candida gut and do you have parasites? And so most of the time we're craving sugars and processed carbs because it's not us that's craving it. It is the worms, the parasites. And there are so many different types of worms, you see, and they can only live or thrive in that warm, damp, candida environment. And so what happens is when you start to give up sugar, when you start to detox and say, I don't want this anymore, I'm giving it up, and I'm going to do a juice cleanse, and I'm going to do this. Why is it that as soon as we start, that's when we really crave it even more? It's because it's not you craving it, it's the parasites literally craving it, because they start to dump toxins to make you crave it because they know they're going to die. The little suckers know that they cannot live or thrive in that environment anymore, so they start dumping toxins, making you crave the very thing that you're trying to give up. So that's why you've got to be cleverer than that and recognize that the first 3 days you're probably going to have some die-off symptoms as the parasites start to die off, and really nurture yourself through that time and flood the body with good nutrition, flood the body with antioxidants, which is that balance, so that, you know, they're no longer, oops, my book's just dropped, so that they're no longer, you know, outweighing the good guys versus the bad guys. You have so many, you know, good things going on in the gut that they just literally can't thrive in there anymore. And then you will start to, you know, day 3, day 4, day 5, start to feel the feelings of wellness and vitality again. But you also need to take some tinctures. I've got some great tinctures that I recommend if anyone wants to stay in contact with me on Instagram. Slide into my DMs and I will help you out with what you can do herbally to help those guys die. Basically, I recently did a parasite detox, because I'd never done one before, with my son, and it was recommended, you know, through my medical doctor, and we worked through together. There are some medical treatments that can kill off 1, perhaps 3 worms, but this was the only one that killed off all 6. And we did it with the diet of no dairy, no sugar, no wheat, no caffeine, no alcohol, no meat, actually, maybe the odd pieces of chicken or beef, but not often. And yeah, it was just really, really hard to do. He's a teenager, so of course he was like, no, I don't want to do this. And I was like, listen to you. Can you hear yourself? That's why we need to do it, because you're so addicted. So if you can't do this for a certain period of time, it's because the parasites have taken over your body, your entity, and they're like, no, I don't want to die. So in having said that, Dr. Marissa, my son's rashes that he had had for a couple of years that looked like eczema, they'd completely gone.
Wow. That's
incredible.
amazing. Yeah. And I love one of the silver linings of, again, COVID and the watching of documentaries like nothing before that. There's a couple of, you know, forks over knives, fat something. There's a whole series that are exposing one of our biggest health reasons why we're in ill health. And again, it's a similar process as what you talked about with the implants, is that, you know, we think we don't know what we're doing, right? In eating all of this processed foods. It's there, everybody's eating it. We're changing into a instant society, you know, TV dinners and that whole microwave thing. And, you know, next thing you know, we're obese, or we have, you know, so much inflammation and diseases from inflammation because of all of the corn syrup in our food, and cancer. And, you know, and now it's like, it's one thing to blame the manufacturers and to blame the people and, you know, McDonald's, or you made me. There's no gun to your head to eat this processed food. So the whole, you know, the lawyers that are, you know, all the class action, it's like, okay, maybe there is something to responsibility if you're hiding something. But if we are discovering this now, then it is our own responsibility to educate ourselves and stop eating the things that are hurting us. Like that, to me, is all. When I hear of a lawsuit and I get things in the mail, you're part of a class action suit, blah, 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 against this and this and this, and it's like, okay, get a $20, $30 check, but are we missing the entire bigger point of this?
Yeah.
Right.
But babe, you know, the main thing is, again, just like the black box warning with the FDA and the breast implants, everybody telling us safe. It's literally propaganda. You know, you've got the like tick from the Heart Health Association.
Oh, yeah, we're having a little bit of, I don't know. There you go. We lost you for a second. Yeah. Oh, lost your sound. Can you go out and come back in? Because I can't hear you.
Oh, that's a shame.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Wait. Got you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Sorry about that. Somebody called me and I just hung up on them. So that was that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, there's propaganda going on in marketing, and that's what we need to understand, is that people really feel like they are making the healthy choice. Yeah, that they have told that this is safe, or this is low fat, or this has the heart tick approval. So it's really important for people to understand that I get it. You think that you're doing the right thing. It kind of isn't your fault. And the education needs to go deep. It's not just counting calories anymore. It's actually more than that. It's about understanding that a lot of the packaged foods have additives in them, preservatives in them. If you see things on the back with numbers in brackets, do not buy it, do not consume it. Also, monosodium glutamate, MSG, it's in a lot of things still, and it's highly carcinogenic, cancer causing. I was helping a woman who's kosher. She didn't even realize that in her kosher vegetable stock that she was putting in everything had MSG in it. So, she was like, well, what else am I supposed to buy? I need kosher as well as organic. And there are those brands out there. You have to search for them, but they do exist. And guess what? If there isn't a brand, then there's a business opportunity for you to start one, create the solution to our problems. But I always say, if you can kill it or grow it, you should eat it. And it's kind of a Paleolithic hunter-gatherer term. If you're a vegan, it doesn't have to be about animals. It can be about picking, plucking, as well as hunting and gathering. And those, berries and seeds and nuts and fruits and things that we pick and pluck, there is a reason for why we were designed this way, to eat this way. We have to squat when we're in the fields to do so, or we might have to pull up to reach. So we're doing functional fitness as we're working with the land, with the food that God designed for us to eat straight from nature, which is rich in nutrition. The more processed our food is, I'm a lover of language, so you only have to look at the derivative of the word processed, which means process. It's been through a process. What's that process? Take sugar cane, for example. That's the real food source of the sugar. And what we do to that sugar cane to get it to icing sugar, this powder, is just incredible, because it started off with fiber, with water, with vitamin C, and we're squeezing the water out and we're heating it up and we're stripping it of that micronutrition. Then we're adding bleach to it and chemicals to it, and then it becomes the white sugar, then the icing sugar, and it's not real food anymore. And so it's no wonder when we're eating an icing cupcake or whatever, that we want it and then we want more. Studies have shown that sugar is more addictive than heroin, but not only is it because it's concentrated, because it's lacking also the micronutrition, the vitamins and minerals, the fiber, the vitamin C, the zinc, the iron, all these different things that our real food sources have in it that help the part of our brain to switch off the hunger mechanism to feel full when it's satiated on that nutritional level. So don't count calories, count the types of calories. That's what we need to feel well.
And there's even more where all of this great advice is coming from. She has lots of books. Go look for her, Andy Lew, Andy with an I, and Lew. I think you're on a lot of different platforms for more information, and go get her books. It's been delightful having you here. I knew we were going to run out of time, and we are at the end of the show now, but we didn't get a chance because I started dating after 7 years, and I saw that a little segment that you were talking about swiping society, but we don't have time to get into that. But what, just one piece of advice? Well, are you in a relationship now? Just curious.
No, but yeah, that book that you're talking about, #InstaLovers, is the dating apps book. And so you're on the dating apps now, are you, Dr. Marissa?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I'll have to get you a copy of the book.
I'm just about, but I have an expiry date. I am, I'm going to end it in 1 month. So I have decided that, I gave this a good college try. It's not really going well, but
you need my book.
Okay, you can send me your book.
My favorite chapter is how to weed out the weirdos.
Sounds good. And we are on a last minute. If you could do this with me and help me sign out of the show. It's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through, inner peace. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live and wishing you the best day ever. See you tomorrow. Doctor's in the House with Dr. Tiffany Tate and I hope you have the best day ever. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks for having me.